Okay, so we're going to review for chapters 1 through 4. What keeps your body in balance or in equilibrium is called homeostasis. Human anatomy in Greek means to cut or cut backwards. Chondrocytes in your body make cartilage. Gross anatomy is the study of structures that are visible to the naked eye. Osteocytes are going to make bone. Surface anatomy, you're going to go about doing surface anatomy by visual inspection, palpation, and you're not going to cut. Gross anatomy is going to study surface anatomy and gross anatomy because you're going to look at the cadaver first and look at the surface markings, and then you're going to cut or proceed with cutting, which is gross anatomy portion of anatomy. Study of tissues is known as histology. Study of cells is conducted by cytologists, so study of cells is cytology. If you're going to send tissue off after surgery to get it inspected for what was the cause of the problem with the organ, it would be sending it off to a pathologist. Hematology is going to study blood. Basic types of tissues in your body are MENC, muscle, epithelial, nervous, and connective. Synovial fluid is going to be an extracellular type of fluid. Synovial fluid is going to surround your joints. Cell function is going to be dependent upon many things, and as far as the types of fluid in your body, you have to maintain equilibrium and regulation of your cerebrospinal, extracellular, and interstitial fluid in order for your cells to function correctly. You have feedback mechanisms in your body if you have an increase and an increase, or a decrease and a decrease, or an increase which also causes an increase in something else, or a decrease that also causes a decrease in something else. That's going to be positive feedback mechanism or loop. But if you have an increase which causes a decrease, or a decrease which causes an increase, that's going to be negative feedback system or negative feedback loop. You have 11 body systems in your body because they usually include lymphatic and immunity together. The system that's going to be important for hormones in the pineal gland, thyroid, adrenal, pancreas, testes, ovary, parathyroid, pituitary, and hypothalamus is going to be your endocrine system. Ipsilateral refers to the same side, and contralateral refers to the opposite side. We discussed planes in lab. Oblique planes cut at an angle, transverse planes cut across and separate top versus bottom, sagittal planes cut and separate right versus left, and coronal or frontal separates front to back. Meninges line both your vertebral and your cranial cavities. You have 4 quadrants in your body and 9 regions. You have all kinds of layerings over your body. Remember I said it's like a Ziploc bag inside a Ziploc bag inside a Ziploc bag. You have a Ziploc bag that covers your whole body, which is like your skin. And then around all your organs you have Ziploc bags. And then in between the walls and the organs you have cavities and spaces, and there's linings there too, which is like a Ziploc bag or saran wrap. So you have the serous membrane that covers abdominal organs, and that's going to be visceral, peritoneum, and the abdominal cavity walls, which are surrounded by parietal peritoneum. So parietal peritoneum is on the walls and visceral is on the surface. So both of those together, visceral peritoneum and parietal peritoneum, form your peritoneal membrane, which is around your abdominal organs. Your pleural cavity or pleural membrane is going to cover your lungs. And your pericardial cavity is going to be the space around your heart, and the pericardial membrane is going to be around your heart. There are 4 abdominopelvic quadrants that exist in your body. There are many things in your body that help to keep equilibrium. One of the things that keeps the pH value in your body constant is a buffer. There's many buffers in your body that's going to keep your pH value constant, and I gave you an example of being able to change hydrangea color based on changing the soil acidity or alkalinity. There are many reactions in your body, and enzymes aid in those reactions. Enzymes are all catalysts because they speed up reactions. Enzymes are also proteins, and enzymes also help to lower activation energy. And we looked at, in your notes, your PowerPoints, a graph that showed activation energy being lowered. There are different types of imaging within your body. If you're going to be using positrons and negatively charged electrons, that's going to be a PET scan. Tires, plastic bottles, diapers, condoms, etc. are going to be a type of polymer. a monomer is going to build together to form a polymer. You have various carbohydrates inside your body. You have the most complex, which is polysaccharide. You have the least complex, which is a monosaccharide. And then two monosaccharides together form a disaccharide. And all carbohydrates are sugars. Within your cells, you have a phospholipid bilayer, which is also called a fluid mosaic model. That phospholipid bilayer is formed by phospholipids. Phospholipids have a head that loves water called hydrophilic and a tail that hates water called hydrophobic. The hydrophilic has the head and it has a two-part tail. Inside your body, you also have fats, oils, waxes, and steroids. Vitamin D is a natural steroid, but fats, oils, waxes, and steroids are all collectively called lipids. You have amino acids that join together to form proteins. Those amino acids are held together by peptide bonds. Within your nucleus of your cells, you have a nucleolus, which helps to form ribosomes. Those ribosomes are associated with RNA, and RNA and DNA are associated with protein and making of proteins inside your body. And RNA and DNA are both types of nucleic acids. The cytosol is outside of your nucleus. The cytosol is the liquid outside your nucleus. Organelles are the baby organs. And cytoplasm is the baby organs called organelles, and the cytosol, the liquid, all together. Inside your nucleus, you have chromatin. Chromatin will coil into chromosomes when you get ready to have a cell divide. Your cells in your body undergo lots of active and passive transport and facilitated diffusion. Osmosis and diffusion are both types of passive diffusion. That means that osmosis, water is going to move from high to low until equilibrium is reached. And in diffusion, molecules will move from high to low till equilibrium is reached. Within your cells, you have liquid that can be transported into your cells, which is known as pinocytosis. That is also a form of endocytosis because liquid is going in. You also have instances where waste goes out. So anything that leaves your cell is called exocytosis. And food molecules or molecules entering your cell is called not pinocytosis, but phagocytosis. Your cells can carry two substances the same directions at the same time, or it can carry two substances in opposite directions. If you're going to carry two substances across the membrane in the same direction at the same time, it's called a symporter. And if you're going to carry something in and out in opposite directions at the same time, it's going to be called an antiporter. Inside your cells, in order for your cells to have some type of structure, they don't have bones, but they have a cytoskeleton made of hollow and solid filaments. The hollow filaments are called microtubules, and the solid ones are called microfilaments. Within your cells, you have, when we study mitosis, you have centrioles, which are the two little black dots on the models, or the two little red dots in some of the models. The two centrioles will move apart during different stages of cell division, and sometimes will come back together. Those two centrioles, which is what they're called centrioles, will move around and hold the spindle fibers. Ribosomes have how many parts? They have two. Ribosomes are associated with protein function, protein basically making of proteins and then the proteins functioning inside your body. Lysosomes help to get rid of waste in your cells, and lysosomes will pinch off of Golgis. And Golgis have Golgi body complex or apparatus. It's all the same thing. Those names are interchangeable. Golgi have flattened membrane sacs called cisternae. Inside your cells have to talk to one another because the cells grouped together form tissues. So connections between adjacent cells are called intracellular junctions, and we discussed many types of intracellular junctions. You have tight junctions, you have desmosomes, you have adherent belts or adherent junctions, and hemidesmosomes, and we'll talk about all those here soon. Adherent junctions are like a belt, and they keep tissue from separating. Desmosomes are like spot welds, so it holds cells together in little spots. Desmosomes also use cadherins and glycoproteins, which is what it uses to weld. Just like in welding, you can weld with different substances. So in this instance, you're welding with cadherins and glycoproteins. And you're making little spot welds to hold the cells together. You also have areas where you have something like mighty seal or tight seal, and these are called tight junctions. And this is where you would put sealant, like a leak-proof sealant, between two adjacent cells to hold those cells together to keep them from leaking. You also have items in your body called proteasomes, structures in your body that help destroy faulty proteins. So the RNA is going to be involved with proteins, and proteasomes are going to get rid of the proteins that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Lysosomes are the ones that get out waste. They pinch off the Golgi. They get waste outside the body, because if you're taking food in, you have to take waste out, just like the whole entire body. Cells also have to bring food in and molecules in and get rid of waste. So lysosomes are used for transporting waste. Therefore they're used for transport, and they're used for waste removal. The organelle that makes ATP is called the mitochondria. When you have a cell is going to make copies of itself, so when it divides, it's going to be termed cytokinesis. The average adult has trillions of cells inside their body. The nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear membrane, and that nuclear membrane has pores on it that allow substances in and out of the cell. The structure that helps to transport proteins from point A to point B within a cell is the endoplasmic reticulum. The human body has many body systems, 11, because they combine lymphatic and immune. These include nervous, digestive, lymphatic, endocrine, skeletal, muscular, urinary, cardiovascular, or circulatory, integumentary, reproductive, and respiratory. Within any type of science class, you're going to see the order of the organization of life. In most anatomy books, they don't include the population level, but I think that if you're talking about pandemics and epidemics, you should include the population level. And we do discuss diseases within anatomy. So those levels are atom, organelle, cell. Let's go back, sorry. You have atoms, and then atoms make molecules, and then you have molecules, and those molecules get ready to form a cell, and they've added organelle in there before cell. So you have atom, molecule, organelle, cell. Then you have the cell, and then the cell is going to be pushed together with many cells and going to form tissues. And then the tissues are going to form organs. The organs are going to form organ systems. And then you have an organism after that that gets formed. And a bunch of organisms of the same type together form a population. The process of building process, if you took anabolic steroids, you would be wanting to build muscle. So anabolism is when you build, and catabolism is when you break down. So catabolism versus anabolism. Cells that are blank have the ability to differentiate into any type of cell. These are called stem cells. The body cavities that exist in the human body include several. You have the cranial cavity, vertebral cavity, thoracic cavity, abdominopelvic cavity. And the abdominopelvic cavity can be discussed together or separate, and that includes the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. And then sometimes on pictures of cavities, you'll see the diaphragm. But the diaphragm is a muscle, but it's a distinguishing area between thoracic and abdominal. So it's like a landmark. You sometimes have electrically charged atoms or groups of atoms with an unpaired electron. We discussed this in class. When you have that, you get rogue type of activity. Those are called free radicals, and antioxidants can try to rid your body of free radicals. In class, I held up a piece of styrofoam, and that styrofoam looked like a Pac-Man mouth, or a Pac-Man with a mouth and a piece of pizza. The Pac-Man, the whole Pac-Man would be the enzyme. The piece of pizza would be the substrate, and the mouth would be the active site. And if that piece of pizza does not fit into that mouth, or the mouth shape changes, that's when protein denaturing occurs, and that's what happens when people have heat strokes or undergo hypothermia. Water has many properties. It has polarity, which means it clings together because it has opposite charges, hydrogen and oxygen. Because of that, you get surface tension on top of water, where little buggy wuggies, that's what I call them, can walk across the water. Water is also a universal solvent. When a person has a heat stroke, proteins denature. Prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus. Eukaryotic cells do have a nucleus. The type of protein that spans the entire length of the plasma membrane is called a transmembrane protein. An organ that is going to be transplanted needs to be in an isotonic solution. Isotonic solutions stay the same size. Hypotonic solutions, the cell gets larger, and hypertonic solutions, the cell gets smaller. Adipose tissue is fat. The most abundant cartilage in the body is hyaline cartilage. The gelatinous material of an umbilical cord is called Wharton's jelly, and that's going to have stem cells present. The cells that help to produce bone inside your body are osteocytes. Histologists study tissues. The type of tissue that has what I call squashed cells in a single layer is simple stratified squamous. Sorry, I messed that all up. If it's one layer, it's simple squamous. If it's layered, then it's stratified squamous. So if you have a single layer of squamous that's squashed little cells, then it's squamous. And if you have a bunch of layers, then it's going to be stratified squamous. If you have cubes in a single layer, that's going to be simple cuboidal. If you have cubes in layers, it's going to be stratified cuboidal. If you have a single layer of column-shaped cells, it's going to be simple columnar. If you have layered columnar, it's going to be stratified columnar. And if you have what's called fake layered, it's going to be called pseudostratified. And you can combine that with all the rest of the ones we just spoke of. The only liquid connective tissue in the body is blood. Platelets, therefore, are a type of connective tissue. At the end of telophase, you get a cleavage furrow formed, which is the pinching, which eventually will cause the cell to pinch in half. Your thymus can grow up to about the age of 12, and then it gets smaller. There's been studies associated with aging due to that. Your liver, parts of that can be taken out and can regrow. Some estimates say 3/4 of it. Coronal refers to the front. Dorsal is the back. Also posterior is the back. Anterior or ventral is the front. To the side is lateral. Toward the midline is medial. The human body is comprised of 11 body systems. Diploid is the double number of cells which exist in body cells, and haploid exists in sex cells. Haploid is in gametes, which are sperm and egg. Isotonic, hypertonic, and hypotonic all refer to the types of solutions, and types of solution is called tonicity. You have solutions, and solutions are where things get dissolved inside something else. So if you have sugar water, then the sugar is going to be the solute, and the water is going to be the solvent. During osmosis, water is going to move from high to low until equilibrium is reached, and during diffusion, molecules are going to move from high to low until equilibrium is reached. Both of those types of movement is going to go across a concentration gradient, either with or against it. The germ layer in an embryo that gives rise to skin, hair, and nerves is the ectoderm. The layer that gives rise to muscles and connective tissue is the mesoderm. There's 3 layers in a developing embryo: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. The mesoderm is going to form like the layers of the pericardial cavity, those types of things. This tissue covers the body surfaces, lines hollow surfaces, ducts, body cavities, and forms glands. This is epithelial tissue. Connective tissue and muscle are formed from the germ layer we just said a minute ago, which was mesoderm. All epithelial tissue have basal surface and have a free apical surface. There's 8 possible cell shapes and arrangements for epithelial tissue, like we just discussed: squamous, cuboidal, columnar. If those cells differ and you have like stratified on top of columnar, then they'll name that layer based on the outermost layer of tissue. The kidneys are associated with simple cuboidal and squamous epithelial tissue. Sweat glands of the male urethra and sweat glands in general are usually associated with stratified cuboidal. The type of epithelium that's in your bladder that allows for stretching is transitional. The upper respiratory tract is associated with pseudostratified columnar. Ducts and sweat glands are associated with cuboidal. The digestive system is what type of epithelial tissue is it usually associated with? It's going to be columnar. The main protein in connective tissue is collagen. Endothelium is going to line the entire circulatory system. These types of cells store triglycerides. They're called adipocytes. The most numerous cells in connective tissue are fibroblasts. The big eaters that get rid of things in your body, big type of cells that engulf, type of lymphocyte, and they're really, really big, that engulf a bunch of bad stuff in your body, those are going to be macrophages. White blood cells that fight infection are eosinophils. Lymphocytes secrete antibody proteins and attack invaders. The type of tissue that mainly has collagen fibers and fibroblasts in your body is going to be dense irregular. So if you think CDIF, then you've got collagen, Then you've got dense irregular tissue and fibroblasts, CDIF. Connective tissue with a calcified intracellular matrix, of course, that's going to be bone. And remember when we discussed in class, bone's going to have direct blood supply, whereas ligaments and tendons really aren't going to have as much of a direct blood supply, which is why a torn ligament's going to heal slower than a broken bone. Glands that secrete directly to the blood are going to be called endocrine. And that's it.